Hello, welcome back to Under The Whāriki. I'm Tahu.
And I'm Anatola, and today we have a beautiful guest with us today, and we are talking about the experiences of a Tongan person, a Pasifika person during the 70s and 80s. And I'm so excited because I happen to know and love this guest, but I'm going to throw it to her to introduce herself.
Do I just speak to you guys?
Yeah, you probably will.
Okay, Hi everybody, my name's Ma'ata Lavulo, and I'll be talking to you guys, I guess, about my experience growing up here in Auckland during the 70s and 80s. Yeah.
Amazing. And for those who don't know, this actually happens to be my auntie. So I just love you so much. So I'm so excited you're here and get to talk to Tahu and I. So
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I feel privileged and can't wait. But we have to start with our game. It's an icebreaker.
Alright,
It's called yeah, nah, yeah. So you get to choose if you're in the yeah, nah, which is no, or the nah, yeah, which is yes. Goodbye?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Watching Christmas movies not during the festive season.
Throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it okay to be watching Elf in June?
I know my answer. I know my answer.
Nah, yeah. Only because I think, Christmas, you can't just capture it for 1 month or one day. It's just not enough. So I think, throughout the year is amazing. That's me personally.
I'm with you. I'm a yeah. I think I love like Home Alone, Elf, The Grinch. Like they're just epic movies. They're just classics. And I think like anything that brings you joy, it should be celebrated throughout the year.
No. No, it shouldn't.
No.
Christmas is for December, and not even December. It's for like the 20th to the 26th max. Oh my gosh, I hate watching because I get so like, oh my god, Christmas, here we go. And then there's not Christmas around the corner if you're watching it in June.
Are your family hearty about Christmas?
We were when I was younger, and now we don't even put Christmas trees up.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite a sad sight at ours. And well, it's because Mum and Dad do the, well, are you going to pick it up? Yeah. And there's fun, like I go over to my cousins and stuff, their Christmas tree is still up today.
Still up. Oh,
Nice, there you go.
Yeah.
You can visit.
yeah, that's the best. Our family are big on Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, Ma'ata has like 2 trees, and it's up to like
You do not
midget.
need 2 trees.
We had 3 one year.
Yes, you did have 3
Yeah,
one
we did.
year.
And then, it's come to 2 now. My daughter's getting older, so I think she just preferred just 1 at the moment.
Yeah.
Not so many, but yeah. No, I think it's the season, not so much the day. For me, that is.
Yeah.
If you can have that throughout from January to December, amazing. It's the giving.
It's the giving.
Receiving aroha, whawhara,
Yes, Ma'ata, you tell her.
that we can take all the time.
I love it.
Yeah.
So basically today we're talking about your experiences as being a Tongan person, a Pasifika person,
Right,
Polynesian person during the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
When did you come? What was your migration story? And tell us a bit about that.
Okay. So I never really talk about our migration story, only because it sounds pretty, how would you say it, like these days, I guess privileged. So when we came to New Zealand, we came on a holiday. It was a 6-month holiday. Because my dad used to teach in Tonga, and it was, and he retired. So he wanted to go to Australia, but my mum, she had relatives here in New Zealand. That's why we came here. So for us, that's why why we ended up here in New Zealand. But we, when we got here, my dad, like we were on holiday and he sent us to school. I mean, who does that? But a teacher.
Yes, your Finau does that.
Yeah. So he put us into the local primary school where we stayed. And he, of course, went and talked to the teachers and looked at the curriculum and all that. And he thought, look, New Zealand's is bounds ahead with education, and for my kids, I want to give them that. So, he went through and did all that paperwork and stuff. And, being a child growing up, you don't really know much about what happened through, not having a valid visa or living permanently in New Zealand and all that kind of stuff until, it comes to you, it comes to you. So maybe 8, 9, my dad used to be involved in a lot of the community stuff back in the day. So he would go to meetings and he wouldn't tell mum, I don't know why, or the boys, it was always me. So he would tell me, Ma'ata, this is where you'd find all our passports and stuff. If anybody comes here, you need to show them this,
Wow.
And so from being an 8-year-old thinking, okay, I've got to do this. So we lived, my mum, her cousin owned a few properties in Auckland, and we stayed in one of the properties, and it was used sort of like a, what would you call it? Like a...
It's like a transition house, really.
Yeah. But a lot of workers would come from Tonga. So you know how they do the picking of fruits and that kind of stuff now? My mum's cousin did that back in the day, but they came and worked in factories. So it was like a boarding house. Sort of, yeah. So one night, Dad wasn't home, and we were watching TV and stuff, and then there was a knock at the door. We had family over, so we had relatives and stuff over. And there was a knock at the door, and these people came in. So all I remember is that they were dressed in trench coats, and they were balangi. And I remember them saying something to do with probably passports and that. And I'm thinking, what Dad said. So I went and grabbed our stuff, and my mum and my 2 brothers are behind me, and I showed them, our stuff, and then they shook our hands and they go, "Welcome to New Zealand," and I'm thinking, whoa, okay. It sort of meant nothing, as a child you just think, oh, okay. So it wasn't until years later that I realized that it was called dawn raids, and these people were coming to ask us to make sure we should be in the country. And the interesting thing was our home, as I said, it was like a boarding house, but it was mostly Tongans that lived there. So it was strange that they would come to that property. Why that property, And there were other people. So our neighbours, we had some Yugoslavian people that lived next door. Across the road were Māoris. Down the road were Samoans. And so, it's quite a ethnic, diverse area where we stayed. But they just came to that address. And so that was an experience as a child. As I got older, I understood what happened, but I always remember that shook of the hand and saying, "Welcome to New Zealand."
Happened a few times, right?
Yeah. It wasn't just one time, and it happened, a few times, and the things that I sort of recall in different parts was there'll be times where dogs were there, but I didn't hear anything, and it wasn't until I realised that they had muzzled them, so they would only take off if people ran or whatever. But I watched people getting taken away. My mum, she tried really hard to protect us from it, but as children, she'll go to sleep and you're out looking through the window going, "Oh, Auntie and so-and-so's been, they're in the car. Oh, but, you kind of, and those memories kind of stays with you. It never really sort of leaves you and stuff. And
were you English speaking when you first come?
Yeah. Oh, because how far? Because how Dad is the teacher. So we could converse quite, but I'm sure my younger brother, he was 4. My older brother was 8. So I think me and my older brother, we thought in Tongan and spoke in English. But as the years went by, we started thinking in English and speaking and thinking, and not so much in Tongan anymore.
Yeah.
So your mindset changes.
Yeah.
But it was very important for my dad that we never lose our language. He said, "That's who you are. You cannot ever not know how to speak Tongan because
Yeah.
you feel your Tonganness by hand. So me and my older brother, we speak fluently, and that Anatola said that. Oh, he's different. But he can understand. But
I think my Ma'ata's youngest brother is my dad. He is I think a perfect example of what a young Tongan man experienced during that time, and grew up Tongan but very disconnected from the culture, and latched himself to other forms of culture that made more sense to him in the diaspora, you know.
Yeah, it was different. At the area we live now, I mean, we've been there for all those years, our family home. So Dad, bought a home in the late 70s when homes were so affordable back then. But even back then, people weren't getting paid that much. But so the house has been in the family since. And of course now it's worth, ridiculous amounts of money. But yeah, that was our father and instilling in us all that. But growing up, as a child, you don't see colour. You never see colour, but it's interesting because my first friend, she's Bālangi, beautiful family, and I remember her inviting me to her birthday, and this other friend of hers took exception to me being there. But remember, when you're a child, you just think they don't like you because, for whatever. It's not until you're older that you reflect back and you realise, oh, it was really because I was the only brown kid there.
And I look different.
And I look different and all that. But her mum, she was totally amazing. I remember her saying to him, if you don't like it here, you can always go home. That I was her daughter's guest and I'm staying, and that was it. So it's things like that you kind of remember back and you think, that might have been a reason why, but yeah. So growing through, I remember there's a time as you being a Pasifika and growing up in Auckland, sometimes you feel really displaced. You don't fit into the Tongan community as such, because to them you're not really fully Tongan, because you can't relate to how they grew up in Tonga, and you can't fit in to the environment you're in because you're not the right colour of the majority. So sometimes you feel really displaced. You don't know where you belong. And then it's all the other people that have the same journey as you. You kind of all migrate towards each other because you've all had the same experiences. And it's quite interesting because later on in as I got older, and I remember going shopping, and so if I walked into a shop, I always felt like, the shopkeeper was following me, or someone was always looking at me, or all that, and you're thinking, gosh, and then it got to a point where it really annoyed me because it's like, I'm coming in here to get something. So what I did then was I'd never take a bag into a shop. So to this day, I always hold my wallet. So as you can see, I walked in with just my phone because now I have a card in there. But I never take my bag, and it was for that reason that people always looked at me like, is she here to take something or buy something? And I used to think, so then I would look at a way of how can I avoid. I hated those looks, thinking, you don't know how much I've got in my bag or my wallet or whatever. And you think, nah, to not have that look, towards me, I'm just going to take so that's what I do. So to this day, I just take my wallet, or I take my phone, it's got my cards in it. And it's because of that, avoidance of the scrutiny maybe, or that just, I couldn't.
Like even going to Kmart and going to self-service. One of my Pākehā mates was asking if, like, I experienced racism at shops and stuff. I was like, every day. Yeah, and I was like, I literally, at all the self-services, I asked him, why do you get your receipt? Yeah, and I was like, because I get it to show the storeman at the front. Yeah.
To prove.
I always take the receipt.
Yeah.
You know to take the receipt if you're Māori or if you're Pasifika.
Yeah.
Because you're the person getting asked what's in your bag.
I get so anxious. I always have my receipt in my hand, and I'm like,
and I'm
trying
like
to show
almost
you.
ready
Yeah,
to
you're
like,
like, yeah.
Take it.
Yeah,
Don't look at me, just
honestly.
take it.
But it's drilled into us. That's how you should act, and that's how you should fare.
Yeah. But isn't that wicked though, that we live in an environment where we're looking at ways of trying to protect ourselves? My daughter, who's 15, but she had that experience for the first time, but it wasn't, it was really asking her for her receipt. And she had other bags, and she goes, Mum, if you were there, it wouldn't have happened. And then I went, why? Because you would have said, what? Did you ask those other people? So I said to her, well, you've just got to be quite vocal about it. Don't get angry. Just stay clear of mind and just
I hope for
say
the day
it
where
how
we
it is.
don't have to experience this. Where we
know.
don't feel the anxiousness about having to prove, like, who are we proving it to? Like, it's amazing that we are people that are able to protect ourselves. Like, I love that for us. But I hope one day it's not just about
sad that we have
survival.
to.
It's out of survival, right? It's not out of because we're thriving. It's like, it's
But
protecting.
even for you to have to do that, thinking of keeping your receipt all the time, so it's coping mechanisms that we come up with.
Because I'd rather not deal with the what's in your bag.
That's right.
And then boom, here I come, see red.
Fiery.
Let's do it
Come
then.
through, like,
Try me on my land.
Yeah.
Try me on
Try me on the leg, yes.
It's
Absolutely.
instant. It's like, and I think it's just like all of us with people think that everyone's just fighters, but the fighter is at the bottom of all the options.
Yeah, absolutely.
We start with love, then we come to compassion, then we try and make a solution, and then if you want to go, everyone can see red.
we go.
Which is sad that
It's so
that has
sad.
to come out. And it's not often we're offering that as the first option.
I hate it. Every time we have these talks, we're like, oh, this sucks so bad. You mentioned obviously like the police with the trench coats.
That's quite a scary image.
That's a scary image for a
that to be
child.
coming in your house.
So that would, and so, then later on in years, that, then I realised that we could have asked them, that you could have, did they have a warrant to search? Did they have even a right to come in? But I don't know. All I know is they would just walk in and expect you to hand over, show that you valid.
And some people, like, obviously that's not your experiences are what you've shared, but some people really were like, boom, through the door. In the morning, like dawn of like literally sleeping, and those were some of the experiences.
Those times they did come, we were asleep.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, because I was always in my PJs. I just remember always, we were always in our 90s, or, you were in your PJs and that. So it would have been...
How scary.
Yeah, that's the thing though. I remember, having this, so I think it was, I don't know if it was because of that, but in my teenage years, I used to think, right, that's it. I'm going to be a cop. When I leave, I'm going to be a police officer. I'm going to be in there and try and, make a difference and that. But then Dad didn't let me go.
No. He was pretty adamant on that. Do you think you trust police?
I don't think because of that memory, I sort of saw, and I thought that if I went in, I would build that trust, but it was more personal. But no, I don't think I did. There's always that. You kind of think, oh well, they're authority. They're there to make sure you're okay. And then I remembered what happened. I thought, they might be there for those people, but not for me. So then you kind of stop. There's always that block. That I think it's I think it's for protection. I think as a person, you always try and you think, they're there for everybody, but then there's always that niggly thing. Oh, but are they really?
Are they there for you? Are they there for us?
And then
Which I know
they're not.
Yeah.
They're not. And even when they're Māori and Pasifika, they're still a part of this machine.
They're the last people I think about calling in times of worry.
Me too.
In times of issue, which is sad.
It is. It's your dial. The go-to phone is your relatives first.
Yes.
So call my
Dad, uncle, cousins,
brother,
anyone.
And then one more.
But that's if all the contacts have been used up.
Literally.
Maybe I'll call them.
And when I used to tell my Pākehā friends that I would always call my dad first, they'd be like, but why wouldn't you call the police? They're safe. And I'm like, to you.
Yeah.
To you, they're safe. And I love that for you.
Yeah.
But that's not the same experience. I remember I went to this Dawn Raids exhibition in Aotearoa, and they had these 2 cops there. One was Samoan, one was Tongan, and they were saying that they felt so torn during that time, like during the 70s and 80s. They were like, they didn't know, and they were utilized in a way that was so, like, just put them in there and they'll get them out. But they would go to these houses during like the Dawn Raids, and because they would be given a microphone, and they'd be like, just talk to them, tell them to like come out, or like whatever it was. So they would speak in Tongan or Samoan to be like, go this way, we're coming this way, so you can jump the fence and run down the road, and our cars are on this road, so go on this road. And like even like the Tongan cop was saying, he'd be taken to a Fijian house or a Samoan house, and they'll be like, speak to them, and they're like, I don't speak Samoan or Fijian. They're like, yeah, it's all the same. And it's just wild how like that during that time, and like I know that they were sharing stories during that beautiful exhibition that there were Māori being stopped and Māori being raided, and Māori kids being stopped and be like, where's your passport? And Māori kids being like, I'm Māori.
Ponsonby, they would, they'd be walking to the pub and they'll ask, stop them, and they'll be going, I'm Tangata Finau. That's still.
Where's your passport?
And they still didn't have passports.
No,
Of course they didn't. They weren't travelling.
They didn't need to go anywhere else.
Unless, of course, they were travelling, or had travelled. But
it was craziness. And
it's the other thing is, it's not that long ago. It's 2022, and it's not that long ago, and yet
2023, Ma'ata.
Yeah, sorry. No, 23, of course. But it's not that long ago, and yet people, just think it never happened. Some people just, oh no, that would never happen in New Zealand. No people would know, they weren't treated like that. But if you look at some of the footages back in the 70s and that, and how people were, the government, and how they called, the names that they used, I was like going, oh my life.
They used to call like the N-word, and they would put it on publishing, and they would say horrible things.
Brownie,
all the horrible things. All just grouped in. All grouped into one. And I think like people don't realize that's trauma. That's trauma, and that builds a distrust for a government.
I don't like today how they try and market police. It's like they're trying to rebuild trust, which is cool. But they use Māori and like diverse police people on the
come and join
on ads and stuff. I'm like, I'll see one brown police officer out of 10. I was like, that is not the reality, that you guys would only have Māori and things.
I think also it's the culture of their organisation, because it's all good and well having them there, but do they actually hear and see, me as Pasifika, or do they just see, it's another islander that broke the thing? Oh, that's another interesting thing. So at work, there were sometimes I had to go and produce evidence at court for stuff. So I would turn up, and they're called the court workers there. They're usually middle-aged white women and men and that.
What are you
and they just beeline straight to me. So I'm sitting there with 2 of my colleagues who are both white, and they came straight to me and they go, oh, look, dear, you have to go and get a lawyer first. And these 2 are sitting, and I was going, why don't you ask them for it? They're only lawyers too. And those 2 are ex-police, and they're laughing. I go, don't laugh. See my reality? They come straight to me. And she doesn't know how to take it, because we're all, by this time these 2 are laughing their heads off, and I'm sitting there going, far out, man. It's because I'm brown, you've come straight to me. And she goes, well, dear, you need a lawyer first, I think. So, and it happened a few times. I would go and ask a lawyer on duty, and I'd go, excuse me, do you know where courtroom blah is? Oh, look, I don't know when your case is. Go and find it. Your name should be on it. I'm like going, oh, okay.
Scary.
And then just walk away and call, hey, guys, where are you? No one seems to want to help. Or they just automatically think you're there as...
Isn't that wild that that's how they actually treat people going through the court system? That they don't deserve that treatment. No one deserves to be spoken to like that, no matter what.
Some people.
Joe Rogan?
But I can't even do it. But as a whole, for sure. You have to meet people with compassion.
And then,
Because you just don't know.
no, well, that's it. Then I remember one time they said to me, oh, Ma'ata, you have to go to a case all the way down in the South Island, like in some, little place. I went, no, there is no way I'm going.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I'll be like a novelty there and they might not let me come back home.
Yeah.
And they're like going, oh, come on. No, I'm not going. And I never went. I said, you get someone else, get someone white to go.
Yeah, because
Not
that's
going.
the actual truth. It's scary in those places. I'm scared of that.
Yeah.
Of going
Have
to
you been
those
down
places.
somewhere?
Yeah, I have, but I stay pretty close to the cities. Even
Yeah.
like, it's pretty amazing when you see another brown person in those places.
Yeah.
Like they're just instant eyes light up.
Like, oh, hey.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, hey, we're in this together. Like,
You're safe, I'm safe.
yeah. It's that acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Brown people acknowledgement. It's so. What a weird thing to have in our own country, eh?
Yeah.
Where
is.
we're the minority.
Yeah.
How? And like even for those things where you're in the court and they assume you're the person who's there to be seen, our statistics say you're the person there.
That's right.
Like 80% brown in prison.
Yeah, I think Māori Pasifika.
Yeah.
Wake up there. And it's just not even not without a beat.
Yeah.
Oh, you go there. I'm like, what? And the other two, so I said to them, I hope you saw that because that's my reality, whether I'm here in court, out there, in the shop, whatever. They were going, far out. They were going, no, you just have criminal written.
But see, this is my thing
colour.
though, right? Like when Balangi and Pakia, however you want to call them, when they laugh at stuff like that, I'm like, wait for me to laugh.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wait for me
It's
to
not a joke
laugh.
until I find it
and
funny.
I find it funny. If
Yeah.
I'm sitting there crying, then you
Yeah.
cry with me. You don't laugh. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like
I
engaged
think,
by the people.
I think at first they laughed because they were just so nervous. They didn't know whether
Yeah.
to laugh or cry, because they were like going, what? We're all sitting there straight
Yeah.
to me. But yeah, there's some interesting things that's happened. Like we were catching a cab one time
Yeah.
and this guy, he just wouldn't let it go away. Where you from? Auckland? No, but where's your parents from? Auckland? No, where are they really from?
I hate that.
Instead of just saying, what's your ethnicity?
Yeah.
You know what? Instead of just saying that.
What's your culture?
Yeah, what's your culture?
Yeah.
Instead of going, where are you from?
Yeah.
It's such a gross question.
I was really guilty of doing that with
really?
Māori.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like when I'm like, where you from? When they say Auckland,
No,
I'll
but
be like,
see, yeah.
no, you're not.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Yeah, but
But
not
you're
underst-
Māori
But at the
asking
same
Māori,
time,
yeah.
not understanding that sometimes it's hurtful for them because they don't know their whakapapa. Yeah, so that was something that I had to learn.
Yeah.
But I was like, when I was little and if anybody asked if I was living in Hamilton, I wasn't from Hamilton. Yeah, and I didn't understand when people would be like, I'd be like, where are you from? And be like, oh, Hamilton. I'd be like, fuck. I didn't know Māori's from Hamilton. I was like, yeah. You would be this iwi or that iwi or
Yeah.
So that was something I had to really get used to.
You know what? When Māori or other Pasifika or people of colour ask me that, I know what they're asking. I think
They
it
know
comes
you
from
mean-
grace
Yeah,
and love, and I
that's
know there's
right.
no intent to hurt. But when
Yeah.
Pakia ask me where are you really from, they often exoticize. I don't know if that's a word. I'm making it up.
Nice. Yeah, cool word.
Thank you.
Exoticize.
You're welcome. They exoticize people who are brown or ambiguous. They're like, I can't pick you. Like, where do you
Yeah.
belong? And so.
And do you notice how they always go to Europe? Are you European?
Oh,
Are you Italian?
Yeah, they just or they either do that side or they make you villainize you and to being something that is associated to being that. And I think that's an experience for Afakasi kids. That's an experience for kids who come from a mixed background and heritage, is that we often get fetishized a lot of the time. The amount of Pakia girlfriends I have that I want to have a brown boyfriend.
Yeah.
So my kids come out light brown,
Chocolate,
chocolate,
yeah.
but the right type of brown,
Yeah,
not
caramel.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and
Not
that's
too
gross.
dark.
Yeah.
It's so buzzy because Pakia, you don't know where you're from.
Yeah, you don't know anything.
Yeah, do you know what is a weird word for me?
What?
I've been overseas and they're like, oh, you're Kiwi. But the fuck's a Kiwi?
Yeah. Me, I
I'm Māori. Yeah.
I'm not a bird.
I'm not a Kiwi.
not a bird.
Yeah, and I don't like people like calling themselves Kiwi. You're from Aotearoa
Yeah.
or you're Māori or you're, you know,
Yeah.
like you're not
So are
Kiwi.
you from New Zealand? Yeah, from Aotearoa, absolutely.
And I think that's just like a placeholder name that Pākehā have adapted to make them feel like this is their home.
Their identity.
Yeah. And most of the time, they don't know their ancestral links.
No.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to ask that person back, well, where are you from?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, well, my grandparents come from England. And then them?
And then
Were they Scandinavian on top of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then where did they come from?
Yeah, where are they really from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who were the slave traders?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just carries on and on. Yeah.
There you go. You came. The other thing is when, I've met some Pākehā who have said, I'm from here. That they're almost like indigenous, like Māori. And I was going to them, you can never be indigenous. You came on the Endeavour.
Yeah.
They came on a canoe 300 years before you did.
Endeavourness.
Yeah, and
Endeavourness.
so how could you be, but somehow there's some people that have just that block. They can't get past, thinking that they have that right.
Well, because they bought that land. It's theirs.
Yeah.
It's an
It's
ownership.
a claiming thing.
Yeah.
It's an ownership thing.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah. I think there's a crucial difference between Pākehā and Indigenous. And it's that we praise the tile, we praise the environment, and we're put here as servants to the environment, where man is the blessing in Pākehā society.
World, yeah.
They're the power, they're the reason.
The centre.
Yeah, they're the reason that there's a being around them. So they put themselves above the whenua. We praise, the whenua, the water, the moana, and they put themselves at the top of that triangle.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
know? So that's where
And they associate materialistic stuff to it, whereas Māori don't.
Yeah.
They associate how the land has lasted over how
Yeah.
many years they've been here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on a Zoom last night actually, and as for this Māori kaupapa coming up, and we had a whole discussion around, is this the right time to have this wānanga? Because it seems like the world's telling us slow down. Like it's like trying to reclaim it's all the floods. It's like saying, what are you up to? Take a step back.
Yeah.
What have you done?
Listen.
Listen.
Yeah. What have you
done?
done? Yeah. Yeah. And I don't claim for my people. Another thing this has gone way off topic.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But
This is
for
what we do. This is what
Māori-
happens.
Māori as a people, we like to, what's your one? Exoticize our tupuna. That they were these perfect people as well. And we talk about like us putting the tile and environment first, but we killed off many of species. The moa, where's the moa? We ate them all. So it's not like we've always been perfect at looking after our environment. And that's where I always say, now we're here, we can learn from those things, and we should learn. Because it seems like we're just doing it again.
We should always be learning.
Yeah.
We should always be doing better than those before, and those before them, and those before them.
Yeah.
I think it's like you look at your tupuna, your ancestors, your tupuanga, as like they lived and they were humans and they made mistakes. Like I'm making mistakes today, and I think like when you humanize that, you see them so much more, and you can have two things true at the same time. They made bad mistakes, and sometimes they make great ones. Like it's. All of it is.
They got you here.
They got you here.
That's right.
And you're an extension of them, and that's
That's
fine. It's beautiful
but I
too.
think it's the learning, and improving from it and moving forward. Yeah.
I have a question. How is practicing Tongan culture in Aotearoa?
Yes. Okay. This is personal. Personally, my take on it. When I grew up. So I was brought up very Tongan in New Zealand. So that means that everywhere where I went as a teenager, I had a chaperone. I wasn't allowed to go out with anyone. No boyfriend ever.
Are you sure?
For the cameras, no boyfriend. And and then so there was also the expectation of having to be able to do the tawalungas, dances and stuff like that. So when I grew up with my brothers, they were really, I always looked at them for, man, I wish I was a guy, because I was a boy, because they can do anything. They go out with their friends, they go out on weekends and never come back for weekends, and they were just free to do stuff. And I wasn't. I was always with my parents. But looking back now, I'm thankful for that, because I understand a lot of our culture and customs because of that. So it was different in the sense that, so I wasn't allowed to ride a bicycle. So I, to this day, don't know how to ride a bicycle.
Neither do I.
Nor did, none of my, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So
So,
much used to it then. There's the car out there. Yeah.
so we went from just jogging to driving. No cycling anywhere.
Yeah.
I skateboarded.
That's good.
I skateboarded for a bit, but yeah. So I think if it, and the other thing was, I was never allowed to go and sleep at my friend's house. So no sleepovers stuff. So I was only allowed to sleep at my aunt's house and home, and that was it. As a girl, my brothers, they can go anywhere.
Yeah.
They can do whatever. So I used to envy them growing up, as teenagers and stuff. But yeah. So in our family, I'm probably the only one that's married a Tongan.
Really?
Yeah. And now, so my brothers both married. My oldest brother married a Cantabrian.
My dad,
Cantabrian.
Balangi.
We've got like a
Cantabrian.
firm rule in
Oh,
our whānau.
No deal.
It is like
No crusaders around here.
you're only allowed to marry Māori. It's like a racist. Yeah, don't you
Not
dare
racist,
not
it's
marry
good.
Māori.
You know what? I had a friend who was Māori, and his father, it was a thing for them. They had to marry Māori.
Yeah.
And, and so we used to talk about it, and I was going, man, your dad's like my dad, have to marry a Tongan and stuff, blah, blah. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. I said, I don't think it's a racist thing. I think it's just what they believe, the old people back in the day.
I think it's
Preserve culture.
I don't
it was
know.
preserving
Yeah,
culture.
that's it.
Yeah,
That's
Preserve
it.
real.
culture. Yeah.
For us, it was
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Bringing back real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then our adopted sister, who's also married
Who's
to a
Tongan,
Tongan.
yeah.
But then their kids have all married mixed. They're all mixed.
Yeah,
eh?
except for
Yeah.
one.
Except for one.
Oh,
And they don't have any kids. Eh?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so our families.
Don't worry, I'm marrying a Tongan.
Yeah.
Tongan men.
Next year, you've got the whole year.
I got a whole year to find my
nail one
friends.
down. Yeah. And then your kids could be first gen.
I'm
Yeah,
here.
first gen migration.
First to migration.
We're only speaking Tongan in the house.
Yeah. No,
You know
yeah.
the dance, Tongan dance. This is just a random fun fact since we're there. That's the only dance in all of Polynesian culture, really, where it's so graceful and there's no clown. You just don't use clowns as a fun thing. It's like a
Oh,
yeah,
right, yeah.
like for us, we have a thing called a hako, and we send them out to be cheeky and do all those things.
yeah.
And use the only one I've ever watched. I don't know if this is true, but I've noticed when I've watched and I was like, that's so graceful and lovely, and
Yeah.
nobody else is being an idiot out there.
No, sometimes they are.
Yeah. But yeah, no, when it comes to favour,
Yeah.
so favour would be said if it's like like more than one person performing. But yeah, they just, it's full on performance and no thing. And then it's just like the tauolunga, the thing. But the tauolunga is really someone
Yeah.
that Tongans adopted for the dance. But it's usually young girls that do it. When it comes to ma'ulu and laka and all that, it can be people that are married or young or whatever.
But that long is only for
Just
single
for
young girls.
Just for young
Right.
girls,
Yeah,
single
and
young
the
girls.
oil is what we call lolotonga,
Yeah,
which is what shines.
but
What's
they,
the
you
oil?
know,
It's like
Coconut oil.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
they
yeah, but-
sort of use baby oil.
Coconut oil. Yeah, some people do
Yeah.
use, and
But-
some
but
people use
coconut oil is-
Vaseline, but we won't go there. But
Yeah.
yeah, some people
It's-
use
it's-
coconut oil.
Yeah, coconut oil is there.
Have
Yeah.
you found it hard to keep those traditions in your whānau? Well, no, you married Tongan, eh?
Yeah.
And a
but-
hearty Tongan.
Oh, he's Tongan through and through. He's like the encyclopedia, Tongan
Yes,
encyclopedia.
actually, yeah.
Yeah, whenever, because even though, I was brought up with it, there are things that, I don't really know. And my husband's usually our go-to. We go, hey, what's this then? So yeah, he's pretty good at that. Our daughter, she speaks fluent Tongan and also English and that, but the difficulty for us is instilling that because of the environment that she's in.
The Tongan values with
Yeah.
the clash of Western values.
Because she can't understand. She goes, oh, I don't really like Tongan, this Tongan, that Tongan. Whenever we talk about stuff, she goes, oh, that's so boring, blah, blah, blah. She's a teenager, so it's really difficult to... That's the hard thing that I could see for us with her. And sometimes I reflect back and think, but then of course my upbringing was different to how I'm bringing up my daughter. So yeah.
I what I love most about my uncle Ma'ata's husband is he is an active participant in preserving Tongan culture while respecting Māori culture in Aotearoa. And I think he respects culture in general because he's so proud to be Tongan, so he's so willing to learn about other cultures, especially Māori and Pasifika culture. He's like an encyclopedia of history for Tongan culture in particular. But I remember he taught me one time about a value system we have, which I think is really beautiful, and it's called Whaikavekola.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want to share a little bit about that?
So what was that?
So my uncle taught me. So Whaikavekola is basically a value system, and when I first heard it, I thought it was pillars, but what he says is that these all weave together to kind of show that we're also interconnected, which I think is a very indigenous framework, which I don't think a lot of diasporic Tongans know about. And so there's the values of whakaapa-apa, which is respect, tauhiwa, which is, he says gratitude, but it's so much more. Like English words, as you know, can never encompass the weight and the richness of the word. There's anga whakatoki lalo, which is humility. And then there is offer? Love.
Love.
Love. Yeah.
Fatu.
Yeah. And I like the way he often talks about these value systems. It's so entrenched in who we are, and like the way he speaks and the way he interacts with people and the way that you do too. It's like you understand it so heavily, and it's like it gets carried with you everywhere. And I know for myself, like being Tongan, but also having a mum that isn't Tongan, you kind of go through this identity of like, who am I? And I think I latched on to being Tongan because it made so much sense to me. And the richness of culture is so preserved in such a beautiful way, even in the diaspora. But I love the concept of whakaapa-apa and anga whakatoki lalo, which is humility, because I think even to our detriment, it can be harmful sometimes, but I feel like Tongans have this type of humility that is just so beautiful and really respectful of space between relationships and people. And the way you hold yourself is really stunning. And I love that although we are talking about something really traumatic for Pasifika and Tongan people and Māori as well, I think fundamentally what it's come down to is like to know your history, to know your culture, to be curious about your culture, to like want to learn about your language. And you know, sitting here with Tahu, like he uses like whakatoki and like all these beautiful things of knowing his language and all this stuff. And he's just Māori. And it's like, it's so beautiful to be around. And like, I think fundamentally that's what I'm getting out of this conversation is like, know all of this stuff, but don't let that define you being proud of being Tongan or being Samoan, being Fijian, being Kiribati, being whatever the list goes by, being Māori. All of this is like, it's beautiful culture to learn about and beautiful history that we can feel pain about, but it not like define us. Because it's like a mat. The four, it just weaves into who you are, into who you are. And that what makes you. But my husband, he did te reo at Auckland University, so he speaks Māori. You know, he knows. Like he'll have conversations like down the road. He'll have conversations with people, and I'm like,
that's so interesting.
So he, he always has a lot of. There were times, so growing up in the 80s, and they were Pasifika were trying to sort of identify, or I suppose. Make themselves part of the journey in New Zealand, but there was always my husband and I were from that environment, or I suppose from where we grew, that there has to be Palangis have to accept Māori, Pākehās accept Māori first before they will accept Pasifika. It had to be, so I've attended a
These
lot
were
of
food options.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. So they would, the government would do things for te reo, which then Pasifika could piggyback to do, Samoan, Tongan, and all that. But I think there were times that maybe there were other people that thought otherwise or whatever. That was, coming through the 80s and stuff. But it's good to see now that I think there's a lot more understanding and knowing that you've got to have biculturalism first before you can have multiculturalism. They talked a lot about multiculturalism as I was going through, working for a government department and them trying to teach it. But then they realized, people have got to understand the treaty first and, and how it impacts their life. And it's not just a thing that comes out, now that we're heading through to Waitangi Day. It's not just, it's part of the makeup of New Zealand. It is part of who you are as a New Zealander, and so if you don't understand that, you've got to
understand it. And that's why I think it's important for Pasifika to know that respect Māori first, because we're in Aotearoa.
That's right.
And if we can't get it right with Māori, then how the hell are they going to get it right with any of us?
That's right. And that's the environment, or that's where we came from, what we saw worked and didn't work, from the years of being there, at Hui's and going to lots of different things, you think, and I think now they still have, maybe, I don't know, but
a bit of conflict. I think the thing was I've talked to my parents about it and how how we're all still in our own communities still. Tongans stick to Tongans, Samoan and Māori, same as us. We all stick in our communities, and it's kind of turned to a thing. I said, why didn't you guys? Why weren't we there during Dawn Wade's? Why didn't our people help? And he said, well, we're still fighting our own fights. We still had heaps of shit we were having to worry about. We still didn't have any land back at the time. So it's like we're all just fighting for our right
Hungry
to be here. And
but can I just say, they were
nice
Māori.
of you. You're Māori in
I know.
You're here.
I remember some work. Yeah.
She's just going to get to, but your connections to Ngāi Tahu.
Yeah. But no, best of both worlds.
You're home everywhere you go.
Period. Okay, we need to finish off. But thank you so much, Ma'ata. I'm going to be seeing you in a few hours' time anyway when I come over to my nana's house. But I love you so much, and thank you for sharing your stories and just sitting with us today. And
it was such a beautiful learning experience for me, and very graceful. It's such a Tongan thing. You're just so graceful the way you sit and portray and speak. It's such a nice for me. Like,
so nice.
Yeah, it's so loving. It's such a nice way to be talked to. Honestly, I've always thought that about my Tongan partner. I'm just like, he's a nice.
Friendly Islands.
Yeah, it's not as fiery and come at you like Māori. And,
we need both.
Yeah. But that's you.
That's me. Bit of fun. Thank you, Ma'ata.
But thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Lovely to meet you guys.
Yes,
lovely to meet me too. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. That's the end of our episode, and we will see you. Oh, that's
for our last one.
Our last episode. Yeah.
Under The Whāriki.
Amazing. Ka kitano.
No, it's not. Oh, okay. See ya later. Under The Whāriki. Great episode.
Later.